Okay, we are live. I found that a lot of subscribers actually watch these live chats later on because I could have 30 or 40 people on the live chat. And then as the week ends, I actually realize there's 400 to 500 people who check in and watch these live chats. So I'm going to go ahead and go with some questions that have come to me during the course of the week. In fact, I had one that came in just about 30 minutes ago, and it's very poignant. I'm going to read this problem that a student had a question on. He says, "I need some advice ASAP, Keith. My contractor made a mistake on his string lines and dug part of the footing, about 15% of it, in the wrong spot. I requested that the contractor to measure the footing together prior to the pour. The mistake was not noticed until after the pour, and the stem wall block mason caught the mistake. So a new footing was dug and poured in that spot, which is the correct spot. How should I approach this mistake with my contractor? Obviously, there are increased costs due to the pump truck having to come back, etc. Please advise me on how I can diplomatically approach this, or call me, please." So I left a quick comment, but there's a lot more going on here that I want to kind of help people understand. First one is, did you get the insurance from the subcontractor before you paid them? Was the contractor even paid on the first foundation that was poured? And if the contractor hasn't been paid, then you can hold that back. You can hold back that cost on the additional amount. And then the subscriber did not mention if that was actually the second part, the mistake was actually done by the contractor. And so if it was and the contractor hasn't been paid for the whole amount, then they can hold that bit about from them and not pay them, basically. So there's a lot of there's a lot of ways you can go about that. I'm going to kind of unpack this in a lot of different ways. When you get a bid from a subcontractor, and before you pay them, okay, you're going to want to get their insurance, proof of insurance. I can maybe show you what that is once I learn how to use the screenshot. But you want to get the proof of insurance, and then it doesn't hurt to ask them to put you as additionally insured, your name or the job name or whatever it may be. Ask them to put you as additionally insured. Now that you've got a copy of that, if you've got a problem and they're not paying you and they're not covering the cost of a mistake. For example, about 6 months ago, I had a leak in a home, and I couldn't find the leak for the life of me. Finally, my plumber went in there and to look at it, cut out the drywall, and lo and behold, my carpenter, who's just phenomenal, but on this particular day, he was not phenomenal. He actually hit the plumbing line, and there's a subtle leak that only went on when the laundry room was being used. And so it was leaking subtly, and then it got bad and got worse. And pretty soon that 2-inch finished nail that he was using rotted out and rusted out really, really quick. And so the leak got worse. Lo and behold, we found the problem caused by my carpenter. I let my carpenter know, and then he was no longer working with that company. He is now on his own. I helped him create his own LLC. So this was when he was employed by that other builder. And so I let the other builder know, and they got upset, of course. They didn't want to pay it. And so I said, that's okay. I'll just let your insurance carrier know. I had that information. I had the email. I had the phone number. I had the address of where to send that claim. I had it documented. I had pictures showing the leak, the nail still in the pipe. My plumber was good enough to snap that picture. He sent that picture to me, and I sent it to the insurance carrier. About a week later, a check came in the mail. Obviously, the insurance carrier let him know, we've got a claim coming your way. How did you want to approach this? If the claim does come through, of course, it's going to affect all of their liability costs. They didn't want to do that, so they decided to eat it and pay me the $3,600. So long story short, before you pay anybody, a subcontractor, make sure you get that proof of insurance. It's just a single page proof of insurance of their carrier, and it gives you the dates of when they're insured and how long they're insured to make sure that they were insured during the course of the work on your job. You want to get that in person. And if you want to take it another step further, ask them to get it assigned to W-9. If you're really in the details of the budgeting side of things, ask for that as well. I will someday give you some details as to how to really operate as a business. As an owner builder, one of the best things you can do is to actually create an LLC, get your own insurance and etc. Operate as a business, and then you're actually writing things off, and it's not so much of a cost, but you're smart. You're now on top of the game. So I hope that answers that question. It just came in 30 minutes ago. This is for a student of mine that's in my program, and I thought I'd share that with everybody. Um, Certificate of insurance. That's right. That's what KJ is mentioning on that one here. I'm going to have some more interesting videos with regard to professionals in the field. I've actually contacted my insurance carrier, and it took me a long time to find him, but he actually drafted a really good policy. It's exactly what I need. It's really tough to stay in his program because they do audits, meaning that they will, at the end of the year, when I'm about to renew my policy, they will ask for a random selection of 10 different subcontractors that I've hired. And they want to show that I've got proof of their insurance on deck, and I've got their W-9s all on deck. And then they renew my policy. So they put a little pressure on me, which is really what needs to happen with a good insurance carrier, making sure that I've got my paperwork in order. I want to have him come in the office and talk about liabilities, the best kind of insurance to have, bonding, if you ever need bonding, that kind of thing. And it's going to be fun. About 4 days ago, I interviewed a person inside my office here with regard to water and how best to find water. We're going to post that on the YouTube channel, but I wanted to let a lot of my students in my program know that I'm also going to add him as a link for resources, and he'll be in the download page in my resource folder for the download page. If you're in the self-managed package, you're going to see access to him. You don't have to use a water witcher anymore. This guy can find water, literally find water with advanced technologies. And look for that YouTube video to come out probably in about a week. It's primary water technology, and it's just a phenomenal video. We had a fun time, about a 15-minute video in here, so we're gonna push that out here in about a week or two. So this is Cat Butler. Do you know how much more it costs to build a custom home out of concrete versus wood framing? Yeah, the cost is the problem of doing it wrong with wood down the road. I know what you're talking about. That's probably a permanent wood foundation. I've got books on that. I was very into that. The permanent wood foundation still has to be covered with creosote, still has to be covered with plastic. It can still rot. You can have some serious problems. And if you don't know what you're doing, by putting it on literally a bed of rock, a huge bed of rock, and leveling it off. I met a gentleman, a farmer up north, and his whole house was caving in. It was leaning to one side. You could just walk right into it. I'm actually restoring a pioneer home. It was literally wood on dirt, and the whole home is sagging like that. That's your cost. Eventually, because there's no rebar and concrete to help make that building structure rigid and it's not going to move, your cost is eventually it can do this type of thing. You ever gone to the cemeteries? It's a small little headstone or whatever, and because there's not a wide expanse it like that, and they eventually tilt like that. Well, with a home, you've got a wider expanse like that, and the home would have to be 100 feet high before it starts to tilt, which is why a lot of tall buildings have footings that are massive, massive footings. That's the advantage. And if you want a temporary structure, I see these people that build these bushwhack buildings. in the forest, and every time I see them put it right on the dirt, I know it's gonna have a problem. It's not going to be a lasting structure. So if you don't want a lasting structure, fine. But if you really want a lasting structure that's going to maintain its value and its integrity over time, don't put it on dirt. Put it on concrete. So hope that answers that question for you. I looked into that a long time ago, thought it was going to be cool, but I've since changed my mind after learning more building science. Lumber futures today, 344. That's interesting. I think lumber futures are going to actually going to be going down, and you might want to look at that. You can follow that on the stock market. What futures are looking for, and it's usually 6 months out, based upon what the demand is today, and you'll see what the futures are. I'll talk more about lumber. I'm having some different paradigm shifts when it comes to lumber. I'm getting a lot of questions. Maybe I'll do a post on that. I'm actually doing an experiment. I'm actually trying to get lumber through box stores and seeing which box store offers the better discount at a particular moment in time. And so far I've saved a couple $1,000s on a job, but it has not been easy. Box stores versus actual lumber yards are harder to deal with. They actually showed up at my house this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, wanting to know where to dump the lumber. I go, no, no, not here. Uh, we need to put it at a job site. This is not a job site. So there's a lot of issues with the big box stores, but you can have a savings, but is it worth the headache? So we're going to talk a lot, do more posts on YouTube with regard to that. Oh, let's see. Cat Butler says, "Oh, I was referring to concrete walls and concrete foundation." Yeah. You mean a concrete CMU wall or just a straight up concrete wall itself? Uh, that I wouldn't recommend a concrete wall versus a wood 2x6 wall. Here's why: if you have a solid piece of concrete like that, and you think that's going to be efficient for heating and cooling your home, it's not, because there's no thermal break in it. With a 2x6 wall, and you've got the stud, sheeting, insulation, which is your thermal break for the most part, and then you've got your drywall and whatnot. There's a break in that wall, so it's hard to have contiguous movement of heat and cooling through that wall with a studded wall. Solid concrete, unless they have an air gap in there, unless they have some sort of a break inside there, that can wick all the way from one side to the other very easy. So that's what I would not go with a solid concrete wall unless you're going to fur it out on the inside, but then you're going to fur it out and put insulation. Why spend all that money in concrete when you can put rock wool in there and insulate it properly and have a thermal break? So, I mean, earth homes, I've seen rammed earth homes too, same problem. They've got these big thick homes and they just ram earth in these forms, and you spend all this money building these forms just so you can ram earth in there with a little bit of a Portland cement, and then you pull away the forms, you've got a solid structure. um, it's just a lot of work for what, and does it have a thermal break in it? If it doesn't, I don't recommend it. So uh, see, Wally asks, hi Keith, have you had any chance to do any lot severance? Any advice and guidance would be helpful. Thanks again, and I look forward to this live chat all week. So, lot severance. What do you mean by lot severance? I'd have to look that up here. Um, Severed. Oh, you mean lot splitting? As a former commune in the Haute Servants. No. If that's lot severing or splitting, let me know in the comments and I can answer that question. Lot severance. I don't know what that means, severance. I'll get back to that when you can give me some clarity. Hi, and thanks for your time. Person in China, I don't know. I can't pronounce your name, or not even China. Can't pronounce that name very well. Do you like isolated concrete forms, ICFs? Insulated, I think is what you mean. Insulated concrete forms. Not really. Um, It's like a Lincoln log, put it together, and you put your rebar in there and you pour your concrete. But then on the outside of it, you got this styrofoam, and some of them have come a long way, and some of them have a rigid panel or strips of plastic where you can screw drywall to. It's still kind of complicated with regard to the electrician getting in there. I've got a new idea for construction that I'm going to share with some YouTube posts. I think I have an idea that might solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. Like I've said in one of my posts, the most expensive part of the home is that exterior wall where you're paying 5 to 6 different subcontractors to do stand right here and do something. Frame, insulate, electrical, sheet, exterior stucco, interior drywall, tape and texture paint. You're paying upwards of 7 different people to come and do one thing to the wall. The more you can eliminate those subcontractors and get it down to 4 or 3 or 2, we have a winning solution. That's our problem with costs. And ICFs don't necessarily eliminate the number of subcontractors required to come and stand and put up a wall. They may eliminate, they don't even eliminate the framer because the framer still has to come and do some furring out, the way I've looked at a lot of those systems. But I think when technology realizes the real problem, they can find a solution. And the real problem is all the different costs for standing in one place to do one specific thing in the same space. And if you can have one person do it all in the same space, that's where you're going to save some money. So, um, let's see. Let's see. Tony asks, Keith, have you installed systems in your projects? Which do you prefer? I prefer heat pumps. Heat pumps basically take energy from the atmosphere and they recreate it. Geothermal, I'm not a fan of. Um, Not in my area. I build in a very arid and dry area. So if I was in an extreme area like Canada or Alaska or Minnesota, and I needed to grab that constant temperature 20, 30 feet down or even 15 feet down, I would grab that constant temperature. But my temperatures where I build can be as high as 115, 116 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. I need I need a heat pump. I need real electricity. I need real utility to get the energy I need to cool off that home. A geothermal is just not going to do it for me. I'm not in the heat. In the winter, I think it's a feasible thing because you're only going to need to tap into a constant temperature of between 60 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's a huge difference of bringing that into the home. But I need to drop from 110 degrees or 100 degrees. I need to drop to 82 degrees, and that's where you need actual utilities, the heat pump. So depends on where you live, really where you live. Uh, see, Robin Robbins asks, should I try to get temporary electric and a water meter service established early on in advance of the construction process? Depends on how early. Water for sure. Your concrete subcontractor is going to need water on the site. Uh, you're going to want that there. And then temp power, you really don't need that until your framers start. Now, your concrete subcontractors, they use power to cut some of their forms and whatnot, but they use battery electric saws, and they can pretty much do without. I'm very skittish with regard to getting things there when subcontractors think they need them there. For example, I just came from a job site now, and there's no porta potty there, and there's no dumpster there. Okay, and it should have been there probably a month ago, but I didn't put it there because next door there's another job being built, and he's got a porta potty there. And I know the builder, and he didn't mind my guys using it just off and on for the first month. So I saved my client $300 there, and we don't have a dumpster there because there's too many people in the neighborhood just dumping willy nilly into people's dumpsters, and I don't want to haul off other people's trash. And I haven't needed any trash there, but now I do. There's a little pile getting up there, so now I'm finally going to order a 6-yard dumpster and a porta potty there. So I don't get it there until I absolutely really need to get it there. I'm just a little frugal that way. Let's see. Dwayne Snow asks, what's the tallest window you'd recommend for a 9-foot ceiling? What's the minimum space for a header? Depends on how wide that window is. The header is going to go higher up the wider the expanse of the window. But if you can have supports in there between multiple windows, then you can shrink that header. It's variable. You can talk with your engineer on that. If you have an architect and they're really, really, really good and they know those numbers, then they can kind of tell you. My architect is a former framer. He's now paralyzed, but that framing mentality that he has in his head makes him a phenomenal architect. So if your architect doesn't have any experience with framing, get your engineer in there just a little bit soon enough so they can recommend the spacing on those windows. But like I said, the shorter the window, the shorter that header is going to be. The wider that window, the taller that header is going to be. So I couldn't really tell you. I'm not a fan of taking windows too low or too high. Keep in mind, the more windows you have, the more loss of energy you're going to have in keeping that home warm, unless those windows are facing south. So think in those terms. There's a lot of courses on building science I have in my program that kind of answers that question. Let's see. Let's see here. Tony asks, a fellow YouTuber with a very large following swears by Zip sheeting. The company is also a paid sponsor. What is your take on Zip versus Tyvek house wrap? I was kind of positive on the YouTube channel, a YouTube video I did a little bit ago, but I'm not really favorable to Zip systems. I do not believe in sealing up your home to the point that you now have to have what's called makeup air, which is an electricity dependency on the home. Meaning when that electricity goes off or when that system goes down and you're not doing makeup air in a home, you can have some serious problems. I have a Pioneer home up front and I have an Omniblock addition on the back of my home. My Pioneer home has been there for over 100 years. No rot at all. But I've seen new construction homes face more rot sooner, faster, quicker because they seal up that home so bad that there's no air movement. And think of like a wet rag that I talked about on my YouTube channel. You can have not a wet rag, but a cloth, and you're cleaning glasses, and you clean it, you put it under the water, hot water, and you put it on the cloth. You take another glass and you put it on the edge of the cloth. Well, the one glass that's put on the edge of the cloth allows for air to get underneath and it dries. But the one that's put right on the cloth where it's sealed up and there's no air movement, bacteria starts to grow in that glass. And when you pick it up 4 or 5 hours later, it's got water inside it still. A great place to breed bacteria. So I'm not a fan of sealing up a home entirely. I think that's a misnomer. Plus, I think it's not very healthy for us. We need movement of air in our homes, which is why when you start thinking about should I put heating in the floor, but are you going to still have central air to move air around the home? There's some parts of the world where they don't have any air conditioning at all. It's not even required because it's a nice mild temperature. And the real issue is heating. But if they just put all that heating in the floor, but there's no movement in the home, again, you've got a problem. The more you can get air movement in the home with transom windows or other kind of double door windows, stuff like that, the better off you are, especially crawl spaces. You know, if you can really get movement in that crawl space, the better off you'll be. See, Wally writes, I believe lot splitting is the same thing as lot severance. So I thought 10 acres with an old house on it, I would have to split off a few 1 acre lots as it has good wide street frontage. You'll want to find out what the zoning is in your local area. If they allow it to be separated in 1 acre parcels or 5 acre parcels, or it has to stay in a 10 acre parcel. You can, if it's in the county, you can go to the county and ask them what the zoning is. If it's in the city, you can go to the building department and ask them, can you tell me the zoning of this and what the minimum size lot is required? And they can tell you, and then you can actually move forward with that. So on the severed split land, I would build a new house and sell that off, helping me retain 8 to 9 acres with the old house. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people do that. I'm kind of mentoring some people that have got 20 acres over here and west of me. And I told them, why don't you just sell off 5 of this, develop it, then you can preserve that 15 for a garden and a botanical garden, some of the things they want to do back to the community. But they don't want to sell any of it, but they can't afford to do anything either. So sometimes you have to cannibalize a little bit of the acreage in order to do something good with the rest of it. So it's a quid pro quo. It's about how much are you willing to give away or sell to make something else happen. So Art and Comics channel asks, hello, new to your channel, following because nowadays you have to learn a bit about everything now. Yep, thanks for following. I appreciate that. David asks, hit those thumbs up if you like the stream. Yes, please hit the thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. And I want to keep this up because I can, the reason why I'm doing this live chat is because I can cover a lot of ground fast. I get a lot of questions from a lot of people, and it's hard to answer those questions and type them out. And then I don't have feedback, and then I don't have the ability to go in different directions and add a lot of ad hoc information. So here I can cover a lot of ground fast. That's why I'm doing the live chat. So yeah, please hit the thumbs up. It's a David B asks, I got a lot of questions coming in here. Your new build home won't stay leak proof no matter how well you make it. You'll have to always check it again and fix your leaks over and over during your ownerships. Yeah, if you're not managing a home, you're going to have problems. So yeah, you just can't just think it's going to be okay sometimes. However, you can build a home. I just finished a home that we got a CO on last Friday. That there's just a few parts of it that I want to tweak to make sure that it's perfectly okay. But I can literally walk away from that home and feel really confident that it's not going to have any problems. And even if there was a leak inside, it's not going to damage anything at all. So I was happy with that. So Tony asks, so I take it that you have not built a passive home. What ACH score do you usually shoot for? I've built a passive home here and there. The one I just completed on a Friday had all our south windows in the south that are passive home. I think that if you build a smart envelope on a home, passive is not so much of an issue if you have built a really good envelope. I've got a video that came out. I don't know when it comes out. I think it comes out in a couple of days. It's the most energy efficient home I've ever built. I think it comes out next week. I'll have to ask my wife. She knows when these are coming out. But I watched that video, and in that video, I talk about the envelope of the home. And a lot of people are talking about passive homes, but they're not really talking about the strength of the envelope of the home. A lot of people are moving into putting insulation on the outside of the home to increase the conservation of energy within inside that home, and also when some of the home is facing on the north or even the east side where it's colder, and therefore it's not as efficient. So passive really is about designing your eaves and your home so it captures the energy from the sun and it passes through, or passive, it passes through and into the windows, and you capture that during the day when it's cold outside, and you're actually helping to offset heating costs so that it can maintain in the home. But if all your windows are on the north side of the house and you've got a southern exposure, because the sun is at a lower angle in the summertime, and you're not capturing that coming into your home, then you're not using the passive technologies that actually help with that. With regard to ACH score, do you usually shoot for? I don't really shoot for the scores. I just shoot for comfortability. I go into some homes and it's cold in corners and cold in hallways and cold here, and just my experience tells me let's make sure that we build it so we don't have a problem there. And for example, I've got a hallway on this home that you'll see on the video, and the hallway's in the middle of the home, so it's easy to maintain the energy and comfortableness of that hallway. A lot of times people put a hallway on the southern side of the home where they can capture a lot of light from the windows coming in, but during the night and during a cold, cloudy day, that hallway is going to be cold. and you may not want that. And people think passive is the way, but it's really design. It's I think smart design outshines what a lot of people think passive is. So yeah, David says your windows wear out, they will leak, your homes settle. You'll start out sealed, but slowly lose some of it over time. I agree with that. I was in a hotel up north, and they're replacing all the windows. They're about 20 years old, and they're replacing all the windows because they've got leaks. They've got some problems. I've found that if you do spend a little bit more money on good windows, that can help over time. And if they're installed right, I've seen a lot of people install windows really, really poorly, getting them sealed up. A lot of questions here. Let me kind of stay up with them. And so David asks, when is the best time to bring landscaping when building a new home? After your septic is done. If you're building a septic, once the septic is done, if the septic is not an issue and you're not dealing with the septic, you really want to do landscaping after your exterior is finished and all your subcontractors on the inside are done, minus touch-up paint, maybe a couple of small things here and there. Because at the end of a job site, you'll have plumbers, electricians, countertops, painters, cabinet guys, plumber, you name it, HVAC, and that's crowded. And they'll tend to park wherever they want to park or where they've been known to park over a period of time. If you're really congested with space, don't do the landscaping until all that's done. But you can think in advance and to make landscaping easier. For example, on a job I just came from up north, all my finished grade is done. All my electrical and low voltage and my sewer lines and water lines are all dug in and brought up to the home. It's done. And so when we do landscaping, I can jump on it faster and quicker because I don't have to trench for anything. And the trucks and everything that are driving on the site, they're compacting back all those trenches that were done for all those utilities. So now when I do landscaping, and I'm not going to have any settling of soil because we just recently did the utility lines. No, we didn't just recently. We did them a long time ago at the framing stage. And now we have all that settling taking place. And if you're on clay soil, you'll know what I'm talking about. That soil can just start to create mounds and all kinds of nasty stuff. You want all that settled down, especially around the home, before you actually do your landscaping. So KJ asks, sorry, I meant insulated concrete forms, ICFs. I mean, I'm going to use them for the basement. Okay. Yeah, basement's fine. It's a little thicker. You got that styrofoam on the basement, which acts as an insulator against that cold surface, which helps. Just you want to find out how thick that styrofoam ICF is. And there's some that have cleats on the outside of them, kind of a plastic cleat that comes with the whole form structure. So when you want to, you just affix drywall right to it, and you don't have to fur out. Some of them are coming along that far, and you want to find out if it's some of the older ones. It's just a Lincoln log, and you put it on there, and you put your rebar in there, pour your concrete. Then you don't have anything really hard, the ability to fix drywall to, or even to fur out on the outside for any kind of siding material, rock or siding or anything like that. So let's see here. Okay, Consult Preet. That's an interesting name. Consult Preet asks, what do you think of piered slab on grade for clay soil instead of pier and beam or just slab on grade? For clay, and it's not collapsible and it's not expandable soil, depends on the design of the home and your area where you're living. If you require a frost depth, it's really hard to get frost depth work right with a slab on grade because you've got to go down 30 inches or 40 inches or 36 inches, whatever your frost depth is, you've got to go down for that. And then if you are showcasing too much of that slab on grade to the outside, and you got 6 or 7 inches, even though you have your frost depth there, and you have a cold environment for the winter, that's going to wick into the home. But if you have a stem wall, okay, and it's an open cavity over here, then you've got your floor system over here. Then if that concrete hits that wall, it's just going to go in and hit a cold cavern. It's not going to wick into the home. You've got an insulated floor. So it really depends on weather, your environment. It also depends on the design of the home. And if you have a frost depth requirement, I typically go with a stem wall. Um, I did a home up north where we did a slab on grade, but I had a frost depth of 36 inches. So I did it very differently. I had some videos on that, but I didn't quite explain it very well. We actually put some insulation on the inside of the block where we brought it up for a stem wall. That way, the wall wicks for that 6 inches that are exposed on the outside where you've got final grade, if the cold wicks into the inside wall, it's going to hit that styrofoam. It's not going to wick into the building. So there's ways to stop that from happening if you want to do a slab on grade. But I hope I answered that question. There's a lot of variables there. We're just running through my head. It says, Planet Mula says, what sport are you good at? I don't know. What do you think? I wrestled in high school and college. I was a wrestler. So I know how to muscle my way through things a little bit. My son's a wrestler. My daughter was a wrestler at the college level, and they were also good at a lot of sports. But wrestling, I still probably the best at. Running, weightlifting, not golf. I have no patience for golf. David B asks a lot of questions here. We're about to order our windows. Want your opinion on black versus white, transoms versus no transoms, and grills versus no grills. It's a style thing, but you are familiar with the latest trends. Love the channel. I would go with white only because it's more reflective. That black absorbs the heat, and I've seen the black fade over time, but I haven't seen the white vinyl fade as much as the black. I know black is kind of a trendy thing right now, but you can offset that really nice. Grids, I'm in favor of grids. It's an accent to a home. The one thing that's nice about the grids that most people don't know about is that most windows are two panes of glass put together with some argon gas in the middle. But those windows are really, really close together, okay? And just a little bit of argon gas is in there, not much. But when you put the grid in there, it opens up those windows just a little bit to fit the grid system between those two glasses. That acts as an additional insulation or thermal break. Air is a thermal break. Okay, if you put those windows real close to each other, then you have continuity, I hope I said that right, where temperature from one side to the other can actually transverse through that glass more effectively. Triple pane glass windows, some of the best ones have a little bit of an air gap in there, right? But you run some risks with regard to that. I've seen a lot of homes or a lot of windows with those grids in them, and they're more susceptible to get moisture content in there. And that's where you want to get a really higher grade window to make sure that whole thing is sealed up with that grid inside there. You're not going to have any moisture get inside there. So look at the quality window, how well the ratings are. But I'm in favor of I'm doing a home right now where they're going to be grids on every single window. And it's going to be a little bit of a plus because they're going to have a little bit of an air gap, which helps with the thermal break. See, Wally asks, the septic tank must be below the pipe going into it. How come some rural properties have septic tanks with bathrooms in the basement? Could they be using some kind of motor pump to push that up? Yeah, they're using a grinder station. It's a small electric powered system that has to grind it, and then it pumps it up through a pipe into a drain, and then it drops down. Now, the upper part of the home, by code, it can't be tied to that system. It has to have any part of the home that can be gravity fed, natural to the septic or natural to the street system, has to be fed gravity. Only those part of the home that can't be naturally fed by gravity have to have a grinder station. So a lot of municipalities haven't adopted that IRC code, but most of them are, and it's smart because if the electricity goes out, don't use the basement bathroom. Use the upstairs bathrooms. When the power goes back on, then you can use that bathroom downstairs. So you don't want to have a dependency on electricity for all of your bathrooms. Um, does the septic system go in late in the construction process? That's a really good question. Um, it depends upon your site logistics. I put in a septic that was very complicated on a job. There's some video on my YouTube channel, and I actually snuck in where I put it, and if I had to go up the hill where the plans required it, it would have required a grinder station for the entire home. I didn't want to do that. So I ended up coughing up $14,000 buying a sliver of land from the neighbor next door, and I had to save enough money from the budget to pay myself back. Luckily, I was able to do that. But now the family that is in the home now, they don't have to have a grinder station. All the sewer goes naturally fed into a tank, which is really the optimum way to go. I'm not a fan of pumps. I've seen them all go wrong, and when they go wrong, it smells. It's not about a matter of if, but when, and they're always going to eventually go. So anytime you can avoid a grinder station, do that. See here, Caleb asks, "Hi Keith, I love your videos and find these very helpful. My wife and I are trying to build a small starter home. What would be your advice on how to build an affordable starter home?" Good question. If you have like a half acre, I would build a garage with a loft in it first. It's a little smaller than what you're hoping for, but here's the advantage. And a lot of people need to start thinking like this. If you can build a home with a loft on it, and then later on build a larger home, you now offset the cost of having to live somewhere else while you're building that home. But at the end of it, when you're done, you now have an apartment. And if you're smart about this, you can have something to rent out when you move into the other house. Trying to create revenue in your own domain, inside your own home, is very, very ideal. I live in a home where the pioneer part up front, we were Airbnb-ing that for quite some time. My parents now live in that. And it's just created opportunity for the family and opportunity for resources down the road. Later on, if I choose to retire, I have literally 2 rentals on my property that I could rent out to offset my retirement. If you can think like that and plan like that for a long haul, that's the best advice I can give. Just a nice loft apartment with maybe a single car garage or 2-car garage below, and live in that, get debt free, pay that off, and save up your money, and perhaps even cash flow the rest of the home. So I hope that answers your question. I've done a couple of videos on that. Just look back on my 220 videos. I think I have like 3 or 4 videos that talk about that. Let's see. Morgan asks, so what are your thoughts on hempcrete blocks used as insulation infill for a timber frame home? I actually belong to a thread. It's an email thread from a company up in Idaho, and they actually send me some hemp blocks to look at, and I give them some feedback here and there. They're coming a long way. Again, it's like rock wool and hemp are very similar in their qualities. Rock wool is a natural product. It's the slag from manufacturing of iron, and then hemp is the basic waste of the stalk of the hemp plant. So they're basically waste product, but they're also natural products, natural earth products. And so there's no toxic nature to them at all. They're just phenomenal, and they're both fireproof for the most part if you do it right. I'm a little favorable to rock wool. It's a little stiffer. It's a little more rigid, especially their comfort bats. I think that the hemp is coming along. They're actually trying to create what's called a hempcrete in between 2 sandwich pieces of OSB, and you literally put that really on top of homes, on top of a roof for a full insulation. I'm really hopeful that hemp takes off and does some phenomenal things. I've seen some hemp where they build forms and then they compact it into the home, and then they put a little bit of Portland cement in there to help shore it up a little bit. But I think there's a company. I need to do a report on this, on the hemp. I'm going to put it in my notes right here. this company up in Idaho, they're coming along. I might just give them a call and say, hey, I've got a young couple I'm trying to build a home for, and they could use some help. Maybe we can do a trade. I'll do a video. And that's what I'd like to do, is do not where I get sponsorship or money from it. Actually, they says, here's a family we want to help. If I promote your product because I believe in it, maybe can you help this family? So maybe we can do a video on that. My wife's probably watching, and I think that's a good idea, honey. We need to do that. David asks, SIPS looks interesting. SIPS is short for structurally insulated panels. That's basically what that is. And I'd love to see hemp and rock wool become structurally insulated in a panel. And there's a company, I think, called Kingspan that actually is taking rock wool and smashing it between fixed rigid board. Could be OSB or could be anything. And I'm actually researching them right now because they could actually help a family that I'm trying to help out right now. So when they do that, I'm on board, because I'm not a fan of closed cell insulation or closed cell SIPs, because when a fire comes out, that whole thing melts. It's gone. It'll just catch on fire. If not catch on fire, it just melts. It will lose its integrity. Plus, it's not nearly as powerful as hemp or rock wool. So Double Dragon asks, is it cheaper to build a house or buy one? Depends. It's typically cheaper to buy an old home. The older it is, the lower the cost per square foot. The newer it is, the higher the cost per square foot. So you can actually get more of a home, which is more square footage, in an older home than you can in a newer home. It depends, though. I mean, I was just up north just a couple of days ago, and I stopped by. You can see this. I don't know if you can see this. This here is the picture of where the home I grew up in. And some of these old pioneer homes were just well done. Really thick walls, really stable foundations, foundations that breathe, stem walls that breathe, homes that breathe. They just last a long time. I'm a real sucker for old homes and restoring them and bringing them up. In fact, I just signed a contract to actually restore an old pioneer home. It's about, I'd say it's over 100 years old, and it's sitting right on dirt, and it's rotting. And so the family wants to save it. So that's going to be some really interesting posts on the YouTube. And so I'm excited to restore it because there's a lot of sentimental value in it, and bringing it up. A lot of the architecture of old homes is just stunning. So you might want, the older it is, the better price per square foot for the most part. But the newer the home, the higher the price per square foot. Let's see here. And Wally asks, there are single-family detached building height limits by the city, correct? If you have a large enough land, can you just move soil to increase land elevation for a walkout basement? You could. You could do that. Or you could attach it. And if they have a height limitation on a detached building, but not an attached building, then you can increase your height limit that way as well. But that's tricky. I've seen that done. I've gotten away with some height restrictions because of that. I did a garage for my brother-in-law, and we actually kind of adjusted the elevation of the pad in the back to accommodate for that. So what they don't see you do before they actually come see you do something, they don't know you did. So I hope that made sense there. Dwayne Snow says, what do you recommend, 8, 9, or 10-foot ceilings? Thanks. I answered this question to a student who was very desperate because their whole family was telling them to don't do 10-foot, do 9-foot ceiling, but they really wanted a 10-foot ceiling. I'm going to give you a couple of caveats to that. Again, it depends upon the weather and where you're building. If you're building in 4 extreme climates, that extra foot is going to require to be heated. And so that's an additional cost on your utility cost. I have found that higher ceilings in arid climates, I have a 10-foot ceiling in my house, and it's cooler downstairs than it is upstairs. But a lot of that's because I have extra heat, and that extra heat goes up higher and goes upstairs, so it's cooler downstairs. I wouldn't go over 10 feet, and I wouldn't go below 9 feet. obviously for obvious reasons. That 10-foot mark just looks really cool. It makes the home feel more open, more arid, more elbow room. If you're worried about additional utility costs, you can do a break between the two. I mean, some of it is 9 foot and some of it's 10 foot. Like sometimes you can come down to the ceiling and do a 9 foot ceiling for the kitchen, but the rest of it could be 10 foot. And that's the only area is of concern is the kitchen area, because once you go 10 foot, you don't really want to do cabinets all the way up that high because you really can't use them. You want to do a 9 foot ceiling. So you think about all the areas you want 10 foot and all the areas where I really don't want 10 foot. And you may not want 10 foot in the bedrooms. You may just want it in the open living area. So hope that answers your question for you. Um, uh, let's see here. Let's see. David asks, make sure you put abandoned pioneer home in the video title. I will do that. Putting abandoned in the title seems to help get views. I'll do that. I'll hope my wife remembers that one. Wally asks, how much do the city and inspectors sway towards using new, better products, which doesn't have a long proven track record? Do the products being used have to have certain certifications? I think most building inspectors are open to a lot of things. What they want to see is that it passes the IRC test, which is your insulator. He'll give you an IRC test, and then the engineer is okay with it. If they're typically okay with it, they're okay with it, except for some snooty places in some states that we won't mention. Some of those building departments can get very, very, very stickler, and you'll want to talk with them, which is why I like building in counties, not cities. Counties are more relaxed, more forgiving, less apt to give you a hard time. Cities, especially hard, big metropolitan areas, those building inspectors are very, very difficult to deal with. And so they have a lot of other rigidities that they impose upon builders. So again, where are you building? What kind of building department are you building with? Are they going to impose a lot of things that are outside the IRC building code? Or are they going to impose on their own building code, their design codes? For example, I'm in the historic district of my city. And so they require anybody who builds anything or restores anything, you have to improve the porch and leave the porch, or at least showcase some porch on the home. So I have to abide by that. So hope that helps your question. Ed asks, does Zip R require an additional vapor barrier on the studs before hanging the panel? I will be using Rockwool for insulation. I have wind-driven rain issues. The Zip system is actually acting as your water and also your air barrier. It's acting as both of those. It wouldn't hurt to put a rain screen on so that if you have shiplap or something like that, you put some furring strips on, and then you put your shiplap on. So if water gets inside the home, it's got a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch of a rain screen to drop down in to hit a flashing at the bottom and hit natural soil. And the neat thing is that air is going to constantly dry out between the shiplap or even siding you put on and the actual Zip system. From what I understand, that Zip system does not require any additional synthetic covering. It is its own water barrier and air barrier at the same time. So I'm a big fan of a rain screen, especially in very humid, wind-driven environments where you've got rain coming from the side. Like in the movie Forrest Gump, I got rain, stingray rain, and all these kind of rain coming in different directions. And sometimes rain was coming up from below him, and sometimes you'll see that rain coming at the side like that. When you do, you have a risk of that water getting to inside structure of the home and causing some problems. It has to have a quick way to get out, which is why you don't want to put your siding right up against that wall. You want that water to fall down right through the backside of that wall. My wife says, thanks, B. Thanks on title suggestions. She will love that. Austin asks, new viewer, love your content. Thanks, Austin. Appreciate it. Give a thumbs up. Dwayne asks, metal versus shingle roof. Thanks. Aluminum shingle roof. Um, I'll say no more. Aluminum has the advantage of being a radiant barrier on the home, so it's going to keep heat in during the winter and keep heat in out during the summer. It's lightweight, easy to install, and it can last over 100 years. Metal, however, even if it's galvanized metal, that's going to rust and it's going to fade in paint. Aluminum takes paint much better than galvanized or any other kind of metal. If it's a regular metal, it's going to conduct that heat right through the atmosphere, right through the substrata and into the attic, and it's going to increase that heat inside that attic. Here's a real good difference. Take a metal skillet in the desert, 110 degrees, and there's an aluminum can just sitting next to it, just 2 or 3 feet away from it. And you pick them both up. You're going to let go of the metal skillet, but that aluminum can is not going to be that hot. It's still going to be hot, but it's not going to be that hot. Now take the metal skillet and the aluminum can and put them in the shade. Within seconds, that aluminum can is cool. The skillet's still going to be hot. It's still going to be hot because it's going to keep and maintain that energy inside it. The aluminum wants to get rid of it, wants to get it out of there. So I hope that answers your question. I use Permalock shingles on just about every home I build. It's the best roofing product I have found, and I haven't found anything better yet. Yuri, I hope I didn't say this name wrong. Mulyarchuk. I hope I said that right. Just Yuri. I'll just say Yuri. Should first-time builders stay away from certain type of plans or requirements? For example, we like the open floor plans that require large span beams. Should we stay away from those first-timers? Not necessarily. Framers should be able to handle that. What I think is things you want to stay away from is, let's say you have a basement and half of the home is on a basement, the other half is on a stem wall. That complexity is something you want to stay away from because you're causing several different subcontractors to come at different times, and the scheduling gets to be a challenge. I would stay with a rectangle or a square box and not have any breakouts from that design. Maybe have a nice long porch or even a porch in the back. But the more you break up the foundation and the more you break up the roof structure, the more you're going to complicate things on the inside of the home. And you can actually talk to, like I just walked through a home up north with a realtor, and I walked through the home and they had this huge attic, massive attic. And they put in their HVAC system in there. They also had 2 dormer windows in this massive attic room, and they took wood and covered over the dormer windows and painted them black. So the windows were not even being used for living space. It was just a showcase on the outside. I mean, we're talking the biggest attic I've seen in a long time, the biggest waste of space I've ever seen. And I don't like to waste space. I hate wasted space. And that's just a huge cost. Try to avoid huge costs and huge wastes of space. I'm a big fan of attic trusses. Just research attic trusses. If you're trying to get space for a growing family, research attic trusses. It's going to grab space for you, and you're going to utilize the dead space in those attic trusses for your HVAC system. But boy, if I had some pictures, I should have taken some pictures, but I didn't have the approval to do that. But I've seen some doozies on homes. I should just do a whole course on design and what not to do and what to do and what to avoid. So hope that answers your question. I just need to keep doing more videos. DB Douglas asks, attic truss is in my future, I believe, someday. I hope so too. Please, everyone, just research attic trusses. Just take a look at them. This is how pioneers used to build, believe it or not. They did not like to waste space either, so they actually created space in the attic. I've saved whole housing concepts and ideas because of attic trusses. In my old pioneer part of my home, I walked upstairs. There was no upstairs up there, and they had some support cross beams coming out this way. So I brought in a pony wall, and I got rid of those cross braces, and I had a perfectly functional room up there because I knew what I was doing. And if you have good framers, they can actually take a good attic punch it out, put a dormer out there, put a shed dormer, whatever it may be, and create some space up there. And it's not that hard. And I've seen more wasted space upstairs in modern building than you can shake a stick at. I've got a good friend who lives in a 55 and older community, and I walk upstairs. And I don't walk upstairs. There's no upstairs, but I climb up through her attic access, and I can't believe the space that they waste up there. Now, a lot of them do it because that's where they want to put their HVAC system. But I say don't do that. Take that HVAC system and put it in a mechanical room downstairs within the envelope of the home, which is called conditioned space. Anytime you put your HVAC system inside the envelope of the home, that's called conditioned space because it's conditioned. That's what it's called. It's more efficient. You can maintain it better. Why put it in an attic that can get up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit? I don't know. People do it all the time. Yes, Dwayne says, yes, do more videos than Design Plus. We're putting in a bonus room over our garage. Yes, great. I've done that. I've got a bonus room over my garage. That's where the TV is, and I've got a pool table up there. So if there's any noise, it just comes down right through the garage. But I did stuff in a lot of insulation up there. And use attic trusses on that sucker. You're going to save a lot of money. Another question. What to keep in mind when designing a floor plan as a non-builder? I'm picky about layouts and can't find a plan online. Take some grid paper. I had some here, and just have some fun and design it. Here's some things to keep in mind. Do you have any kids? If you have any kids, take the master bedroom and put it over here, and put the kids' room and put it over here, and maybe opens floor space and kitchen in the middle. That way the kids aren't going to affect your private life. That's one thing to consider. You don't want to have a master bedroom right next to an open living space where there's a partition wall there. You're going to hear the noise from one to the other. Try to separate them, or you're going to end up putting insulation between those walls. It depends on the comfortability you want and how you want to feel in your main living space versus your own master bedroom. And those are the two things to think about. Forget about the kids. You can put them in a closet if you need to. Make sure that your main living space for your master bedroom and your kitchen and your living space is what you want, and let everything else lay out where it needs to be. And don't think about the roof structure. Don't even think about the exterior of the home. Don't even let that come into your mind. Just lay it out on paper first. And then the architect and the engineer, they will design the exterior and they'll design the roof line. They'll do all that to fit that floor plan. So I hope that answers your question. And building your floor plan, designing that first is the best. I've seen people have a fixation on the look of the home on the outside because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Don't do that. And then they try to force fit a layout around that. Don't do that. Start with a floor plan first. In fact, my architect, who's worked with a lot of my students, that's what he does. He works with a floor plan first. Then if there's a second floor plan, he does that second. If there's a basement, he does that last. And when it's all done, then he starts to put the skin on it. So I know it's counterintuitive, but it's actually the right way to go. Let's see here. I see. Keep in mind, a lot of questions still coming in. Let's see. Austin asks, have you seen the method of insulating the roof instead of the floor or of the attic? Then the attic will be conditioned. I'm hoping to do that on the next build. I'm actually going to do, if it works out, I'm hoping that I can do a post beam structure, which is all rough sawn timber manufactured back east. I'm actually talking with the company right now, and it's made by a CNC machine. Beautiful design, but I want to insulate and wrap the whole thing in insulation, which is why I'm talking to Kingspan to see if they can manufacture those SIP panels made with rock wool in the middle, where I can just literally wrap the entire building in R38 insulation, literally, and then save all the rough sawn timber, have no drywall. The first home I'll build with no drywall. I'm hoping it'll work out. We'll see. Hopefully I can do some posts on that one, but I've seen it, and I think that's the way to go because the end result can be pretty cool. We'll see. But Bogdan, how do I say that last name? I won't even try to say that. Glashenko. I hope I said that right. Hey Keith, your videos are great. I'm an apprentice framer in Northern California. Where can I find more framing subcontractors? Apprentice framer in Northern California. Where can I find more framing subcontractors? How much building do you have taking place over there? Um, that's the first thing I'd look for. And if you really like framing and you really want to hone in on that, look for log timber framers up in the mountains area, high end custom home stuff, because that's where the good money is for framers. Your regular run of the mill type of builder grade stuff, you're gonna bust your chops for hardly anything. That's my advice as a business person. Um, but just go out and knock around and say, hey, I'm looking for work as a framer, and ask. Follow a channel called Matt Bangs Wood. Do you follow him on YouTube? He's in California. He's a phenomenal framer. He's got a big following. He puts music and high production quality to his videos, which I don't do, which is why he's really popular on YouTube. But check out Matt Bangs Wood. You might want to reach out to him because he's created a huge network of framers nationwide, and he might be able to help you out. Check him out. And he answers questions on YouTube. He's a good guy. You'll like him. Matt Bangs Wood on YouTube. Follow him. Um, let's see here. So I'm working on designing a house in SketchUp. It's funny since the kids' rooms are next to the kids' rooms, like you mentioned. It's right the best way to go. Uh, and the SketchUp is fun. I've seen a lot of clients use SketchUp, but there's limitations. It's fun to play, get a rough approximation. The more hard work you can do with that, the better. Eventually needs to go with the draftsperson. And that draftsperson is going to do all your elevations. It's going to give specifications for all of your exterior. It's going to give you a roof pitch. It's going to give you a plot plan. It's going to showcase where power and water and utilities are going to be put. And then with some cities and some jurisdictions, that draftsperson is going to put your dumpster and your porta potty and your staging for the entire build of the home. That's how detailed and how much work the draftsman will eventually do, which is why you really want to get that person on board. And they're going to draft it in CAD or any particular vector file that then the engineer is going to pull that vector file into their system and do the engineering on. So you really need that draftsperson eventually at some point. But you can save a lot of time and hassle by having some fun with SketchUp. So, well, if you have any more questions, yeah, we've got a little bit more time, so ask your questions. That's fine. I'll take another few questions here. We'll go to about 6:20 or 6:25 or so. Opinion on two small garage doors versus one large garage door. Thanks again. One big garage door. Unless you can do a garage door that's at least 10 feet wide. But the problem I found is that it's a little bit narrow for big cars. A big garage door, but not a 16-foot, but an 18-foot garage door. Don't scrimp on that. And here's the real sweetness of a garage. Don't have a 1 foot or a 2 foot wing, meaning when you go through the garage door, you've only got two feet before you hit the wall. Have 3 or 4 or 5 feet. I like 3 feet minimum. The minute you go below 3 feet, after you go through the doors and you only have less than 3 feet, it really feels like you're going to bang the door against other car doors. You're going to bang the door against the walls of the house. You want some breathing room, especially with large cars. Now, I have to drive a truck that's 21 feet long. I can't even fit inside my garage door because I've got a bench in the very back of my garage, and so I can't even fit in there. And even if I didn't have that bench, it still wouldn't be deep enough. So now you want to factor in at least 26 feet deep, not 22 or 24, but 26 feet. So if you can go at least 26 feet, maybe a little more if you can, and then I think close to the same in the width, you can get an 18-foot door in there. And then now you've got 3 to 4 feet on both sides of that. Now you've got all the room you want in a garage. It's not going to hurt to make a garage a little bigger. Now, here's something to think about. In some places, framers won't consider the size of the garage as part of the conditioned finished square footage of the home. In some places, they will figure it as the total cost to frame. In California, framers are going to include the square footage of the garage as well. That's considered finished square footage, so we're going to charge that square footage. In my neck of the woods, we don't let them get away with that. Well, we just don't allow for it. We just say, no, I'm 2,500 finished square footage. You charge me $10, $14 a square footage, and you don't add the garage, and you got the job. It's kind of brutal where I work, but we've kept the cost of framing down because of that. In other areas, they have not. The framers have got the advantage. So think about that. You might want to find out what framers charge per square foot. And if it's cheaper, if they don't charge for the garage, then go for a bigger garage. So let's see here. DB Douglas asks, do you have any videos about building a detached garage with bathroom connecting to septic? And I did a garage in the back for my son a couple of years ago. There's some old videos, some of my early videos I did for that garage door. It's a detached, and it does have a loft apartment in it, but don't tell locals about that. But now it's legal to do, but when I didn't do it, it wasn't legal to do, but now it's legal. They've approved for that, mainly because people have such big yards and they were stopping them from being built or build out things they need in their family. And now they've allowed for that. So yeah, with septics, it makes it more difficult. I could talk forever on septics. I don't want to go down the road right now. Let's add to a couple more questions here. I hope I answered that question, Douglas. So, if I understand mini split AC systems correctly, I can completely get rid of the ugly ductworks inside the entire house and avoid all those duct cleaning scams, right? Yes. In fact, I just called my HVAC contractor. One of them, he's got a crane. He's ripping off a unit off a roof of a home that I've totally restored, and I've got mini splits, a whole system for the upstairs. It's a separate rental, and a whole system for the downstairs, which is a separate rental. I had to separate them because mini splits do not operate, meaning when one room wants heat and another room wants cool. They don't. They all have to be on heat or they all have to be on cool. Otherwise, that condenser is not going to operate right. It's going to say, wait a minute, are you making me heat or cool? What is it? So that's why we separated them, because the basement's going to be cooler than the upstairs. So they're going to operate heat probably a little longer in the season than the upstairs. So something to keep in mind. But I love mini splits. They've come a long way. They're great to maintain. And yeah, answer is yes on that one. See, Tony asks, tall ceilings are definitely on trend. Do you have a max height that you recommend? Not more than 10 feet. I assume after a given height, heat and cooling are inefficient. Yes. I could show you pictures of homes where there's like 30 plus feet of just massive open space. And the cost to heat that, it's very uncomfortable. The entire home is uncomfortable. I don't care how good you are of a HVAC person. If you're not utilizing southern exposure and not utilizing the best design you can and the best windows and triple pane windows, the more open air expanse you have, the more costly it's going to be. So, but I don't like to go over 10 feet. However, I just finished a nice custom home for some clients, and we did a 2x8 wall on the north side of the house to really help with the cooling and keeping a comfort level of the home. But I've got 29 feet, about 20, almost 29 and a half feet on the inside open cavity of the home. Go to my site, kelschconstruction.com, and go to the bottom and you'll see the video of that home. Some gorgeous open air area. And I'll let you all in on something. The beams inside that home are made from one of a former president of the United States. I won't mention the president, but we took the beams from an old barn that was being demolished from his site. And we're talking a president that's 150 years ago. So very, very beautiful home. Let's see. Yeah, but some people don't like the look of the interior unit unless you do with a cassette ceiling system. Look into the cassette HVAC mini split system, not the wall mounts. I agree, I don't like the wall mounts. Look at the cassette mini systems, and some of them are getting really, really cool looking and sophisticated, almost to the point where they look like it's just like a grill, or a shelf system. I've seen some look like a shelf system, a natural shelf system where it needs to be, but you don't know that it's moving air behind that. So I think mini splits are going to come a long way over the future. Jose says, love listening to your video, especially since we have bought a parcel in not Narco, Norco, California. Dream is to build a home that suits our family of 7. Great. Thank you. I hope that does. Check out my site at howtobuildyourownhome.com. It's got a lot of resources there. If you think I'm talking a lot here, it's got downloads, it's got budgets, draw sheets, subcontractor agreements, checklists on everything. And I keep improving it. And it's almost like 87 different checklists as you're going through the whole process. It's a very affordable and it's a great program. And then on top of that, if you have questions, you can ask me questions inside that relative to that subject matter, and I can give you links, and it's building a huge content base inside that whole platform. So check it out at How to Build Your Own Home. And if you haven't done the First Steps course, do that. If you're just starting, take the First Steps course. It comes with the self-managed course. So if you take the self-managed course, it automatically comes with the for the First Steps course. And I do have scholarships available for people that qualify, so check it out. All right. And then a couple last questions. We'll end with these last few questions here. Good, Odin, good point. So far in my design, I have the mini splits behind each door, so partially open will hide them perfectly. Cool, yeah. But check out those cassette systems, the ceiling cassette systems. They need a 2-foot span. So if you have your rafters that are on a 2-foot on center, those mini splits cassette systems fit perfectly right up in there. So if you're building new, check that out. And so let's answer this last question here. Last 2 questions. Got one that came in just a second here. My plan is to build 3 garages on a 3-bed, 2-bath, L-shaped floor plan, trying to make it look like those big houses. Thinking is it's cheaper to build garages than conditioned spaces. Would that be correct? Talk to your framers and ask them if they include the garage in part of the framing. In a big home like that, they might. But if they're looking for work, you tell them, I'll give you your price per square foot on the finished living space, but not the garage. And you just frame the garage for me. You want the work? You can ask them. Right now, there's a lot of people out of work or looking for work. So you can bargain, but don't beat them up so bad. But you want to give them work, but you want to try to get a good deal. So I'm building my home using Keith's self-managed course. It has been awesome. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Yeah, check it out at How to Build Your Own Home. And I'm going to start spending some time on that and really start to. I love tweaking my checklist. I have one thing called the flow chart, and it's like 4 or 5 pages long, and it works for stem walls, slab on grade, walkout basements, but it helps you understand what comes next. And every 3 months or so, I look at that document and I improve it and I improve it. I see, oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. Eventually, that one document is going to be phenomenal because you just reference, oh, what should come next? What am I not looking at next? And this flow chart helps you identify what's going to come up and what I need to plan for, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. I've already been working on it for 2 years, but it's up there. It's in the download section. You'll check that out if you can. Anyway, thanks everybody. I appreciate this. I got a lot of feedback. I wrote down some notes. I'm going to let you all know how Kingspan comes out if I find out some good information with them, and if they're using hemp or if they're using Rockwell. I think they're using Rockwell. I'm going to be here every Thursday at 5 o'clock. If you're new to the channel, check out my other channel at Genuine Optimist on YouTube. It's a channel that really is focusing on how to build community and better families and stuff like that, but really the community side of stuff. And optimism is not what we do as individuals, it's what we do together. And just keep that in mind, because we always get lifted and more inspired when we're with other people that are doing something great. That's really powerful optimism. So thanks for the questions, everybody. One of the best things about YouTube, this channel. Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate that. And Ed says the best. You guys are the best. Thanks for chiming in. We'll see everyone next Thursday, again, 5 o'clock, live chat. This is Keith Gauss with How to Build Your Own Home. You guys have fun out there.